Teasel comes around a bit after going through like a bunch of hard medical procedures. He kind of looks like the mummy. He's all, bandaged up. He's like cut everywhere, cut up pretty bad. And now he's setting up camp in the back of like a big service truck, military service truck. He's hiding out from the police and the press and people and people like determined to ask him questions about what's going on, and he's still determined to stay in the game. If he's gonna have to give answers, he wants to be able to handle all of what comes. Now, his department, the state police, various hunting posses, and so-called experts that will show up in a bit, are set up in the area like Teasel was found, and we're introduced to Dave Kern from the state police. In the movie, he was played by the guy from Deliverance, who handles Otis from Superman. Anyway, so there's some rivalry between them, and Teasel's pretty much bandaged up head to toe. Kern's talking down to him. They go back and forth. And Teasel's now medicating himself occasionally, and it's pretty much ramping up. Like, he's just popping pills every other couple of pages. And he's spotting blood from different separate points on his person. So, like, Kern's, wishing and trying to encourage him to stand down, but we all know that's just not going to happen, because it's much deeper now between Teasel and Rambo. Psychologically, physically, everything is just way deep, and Teasel can't really get out even if he wanted to. I don't think, if he didn't settle it, it would still haunt him. And so they discuss tactics, and hunters out for Rambo who are like in the bush. They accidentally do some friendly fire that results in a few deaths over time. And Teasel tells some stories in comparison to anticipate what Rambo will do next. There's a sad story about a 6-year-old little girl that's pretty grisly and disturbing. They talk about, arriving bounty hunters, and it's clear that they don't like how things are turning out, and they're deeply scared that all the new interference will mess up with their search and destroy the mission. So Teasel's having heart problems and continues to medicate himself, punishing himself sort of for all the lives lost and what has unfolded. And Kern has a moment where he tries to console Teasel, and the night goes on, and Teasel and the unified men go over planning, and a chopper flies in. So they go out to meet the ferret-faced man himself, Colonel Samuel Troutman, as I like to call Uncle Sam, as do many others. By the barbed wire fence, they familiarize themselves, meeting one another, and Troutman navigates the fence with ease, and we begin to learn more about Rambo. He just handles that fence. So, for instance, this version of Troutman is less familiar with Rambo. The men he trained him, and it feels more like this Troutman is here not to help stop Rambo, but end him if need be, if things really did escalate wrongly on Rambo's behalf. However, he does speak of Rambo with great pride and eloquence, and Teasel kind of finds that Troutman reminds him of the army weasels in Korea, the ones that he always warned away from. There's a little Orville comparison, and Teasel greeted Troutman in the same manner as Orville before his death. And that he kind of starts talking to Troutman like Orville, kind of like giving into him more, not giving into him more as a father figure, but recognizing, it doesn't say if Troutman's older than him, I don't think, but, there's kind of, some father-son struggle there, with Rambo actually in the mix. It's kind of hard to explain, you kind of have to read it. I don't want to really quote anything that I don't remember where it was from in the book, but just try try to trust me, and let's move on. So Troutman still wants a crack at salvaging Rambo for the moment, and Teasel agrees, wanting to see Rambo hang for what's gone down. And Troutman's very condescending toward Teasel and goes through all sorts of humiliating clauses on how Teasel's failure was all part of Rambo's sort of plan out. Teasel begins like going through some sort of sixth sense where they, because the war between them is sort of a mind game, kind of like chess. They refer to it like chess a lot, and they go over plans of attack like over and over. And we see the many ways it could play out on both sides of the coin, Rambo's perspective as well as their own perspectives. And it's pages of beautiful planning and plotting, and Teasel makes his way to the back of the communications truck, and there's a couple of drunk bounty hunters who accidentally shoot themselves again, and one of Teasel's men, he's caught in the crossfire with a headshot and may not make it. Eventually does it, but there's a moment where Teasel has really negative, deep thoughts about it. And Teasel wish it was just him and Rambo again. That no one else, should die for this, for what has transpired between them. So he's still medicating himself, heavily, and almost passes out, at one point, and Troutman returns, and they compare Korea to Vietnam and how Rambo, knowing Teasel's post in Korea, will affect their battle, and how Teasel is starting to slip up as well. Then Teasel and Troutman have some words on Troutman looking up his file before their meeting, and feels kind of like spied on a bit. And see, the government's been doing that way before the internet. But anyway, they talk about the Chosen Reservoir and how it was affecting the battle then was affecting the battle now. And there's some pretty awesome surprises here, but I'll leave them for you to check out. So Chosen Korea battle, like 30,000 men had died in that battle, and Teasel was in the middle of it in Korea and escaped pretty much the same way he escaped from Rambo in the Brambles. Well, not in the Brambles, but through the same sort of torment. And we see his medal earned was only outranked by the one that Rambo had received for his duty. So Rambo had seen Teasel's medal on display at the police station earlier, and Troutman believes it will affect how Rambo decides to fight this battle, and they compare it to chess again. So Teasel begins to come out more, letting go of his ego more and more, and Troutman rubs it in his face nonchalantly, kind of, and Teasel uses Troutman's intel to use it, just in case he meets up with Rambo again. And we learn that Rambo's mother had died of cancer when he was a very young boy, and his father abused him regularly as a heavy alcoholic father. One time trying to even kill Rambo when he was young with a knife, and Rambo running from the house to his bow and arrow that he shot at his father with, nearly killing him in exchange. So, like, the dad drank the estate's money away, and young Rambo got a job in a garage fixing cars, etc. We learned that, pushed to the limit, Rambo wasn't crazy and was actually as well balanced as Teasel or Troutman. So they crawl into the psyche of Rambo, and Rambo is the victim, and Rambo's sounding unstoppable now. And we learn Troutman's also disaffected, but stays in the army to help save lives, and there's some conflicts of interest on Troutman's behalf. And Troutman slips up and smokes a cigarette, even though he's quit smoking, like 3 months ago. And they talk about, military tech and becoming expendable, and Teasel stays up all night listening to the radio reports, and Troutman crashes on the truck floor, and he goes over the battle plan, puts a blanket over Troutman and sits thinking of, burning. He's just burning and messed up, and the ghosts come full force, memories of old lives, Orville and his men and their lives, and the regrets, like a mass, he's thinking of a big mass funeral, and caskets closed, and how he's going to have to explain all this to the families, and he kind of vows to die before running away again, thinking of what's left of all the bodies out in the woods, even for a moment showing sympathy for Rambo, and then goes back to anger against him when he starts remembering the decaying corpses out in the woods. And he's very on the fence, starting to enter this world of fighting against himself, much like Rambo is doing, except that Teasel starts off on small trivial things. Rambo starts off on big things, big issues, and whereas Teasel's stuff is more trivial and small, Rambo's is very big and PTSD filled. So whereas Teasel kind of sympathized with Rambo at one point, then he goes right to the edge, and he wants to hang Rambo. Just like how Rambo, in exchange, kind of doesn't want to fight anymore, but he feels he should have to fight for what he's gone through and had to come home and be subjected to in return for giving his life so others could live, even though that was kind of a lie on the government's behalf. So at dawn they hand the operation over to Teasel, and at last it's go time.